this film, which you wrote and directed, what was the inspiration for it? Are you a sci-fi person? Do you watch a lot of sci-fi?
I do watch a lot of sci-fi, and I grew up reading lots of sci-fi. But like Isaac Asimov, like I read and wrote. I read a lot of Isaac Asimov. I think I read like every book he ever wrote, which was insane if you consider how many books he's written. And I wrote my college admissions essay, about an Isaac Asimov quote. So at some point I had an idea for a gun that can murder people in the past. And I was like, well, that's kind of ridiculous. What am I going to do with that? So I sort of put that idea away. And then soon after my son was born, I started sort of feeling the world become a lot scarier and a lot more uncertain. And I was really wrestling with that uncertainty. Like, everything, I needed to get my health insurance, but I didn't get my health insurance. How am I going to get my kids' health insurance? Like, where everything just felt like so scary, and I needed to try to control everything. And being a filmmaker, I decided to grapple with that through a story of a film. And then as I was figuring out how to do that, I was like, oh, maybe I can use that idea of a gun that murders people in the past and use it as a way to tell a story about a woman who's trying to sort of gain control of the uncertainty in her life.
Are there any changes that can...
Good idea.
Eh.
It seems like a lot of filmmakers are inspired to write movies when they become a parent for the first time. Didn't David Lynch write Eraserhead about his fear of becoming a parent for the first time?
Possibly.
This movie is so much like Eraserhead.
It is. But no, I realize like parenthood informs like every single thing I do, even before I had kids. This is a realization I had while I was writing an essay for the Talk House. It was like, oh yeah, everything I've done, like my first movie literally starts with someone murdering their parent, and like the experience of like relationships between children and parents, I guess, is something that interests me a lot.
Yeah. This is a phenomenal cast. I love all of them so much. Judy Greer, who's the indie queen in the United States. Payman, who's the king of Iranian film. And is it Eddie? Is it pronounced
Eddie.
Eddie?
Yeah.
Who I didn't know that well, but I looked at his list. He's been in a ton of things, and he's fantastic in this. Can you talk about like your casting process? Did you have anybody in mind when you were writing for any of these people?
I never have anyone in mind when I'm writing anything, just because like the reality of the world and the market is that like you could, have some actor in mind who you love and and they'll love it, but then they get cast in a Marvel movie and you lose them for 5 years, and it's just there's too much unknown to be like tied in that much. I mean, sometimes when I write, I'll think of like older actors or someone like that. But, for this, I've just been such a huge fan of Judy. She's such a talented actor. I think she has probably like the most expressive face, and she can use it in ways that are totally unexpected, which is why I think she gets in a lot of comedies, because it can be funny. And I also to me, this isn't a story that I'm pointing the camera sort of a little at people who are not usually the center of a story like this. Usually it's like a rich person in Beverly Hills who has all the money in the world to make a machine like this. So I like the idea of sort of putting Judy, who's always sort of on the side, in the spotlight. And luckily she responded to the material, and it was great. And and once we got her on board, it was like, all right, who's the best person to partner with Judy, who is like all emotion and expressiveness. And that made me think of Eddie Gathegi, who I just have always been impressed with his stillness as an actor. He sort of radiates stillness, but then can just emote so well with his eyes, or just like the smallest of gestures. And I thought he would pair really well with Judy, and he responded to the script, and we went through and we did his notes and we got him on board, and it was great. And then rounding it out, Payman Madi is such a superstar actor. And even from the first time, I think I sent this script to my producer, Netta Armian, she was like, you got to get Payman for this role. And luck, and he's
Does he live over here?
he's back and forth, but
Okay.
yeah. And luckily he was in the country, and we were able to get him. And I think he's the perfect person to bring that character to life.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I mean, I think I had seen him in one other English language film, that one with Kristen Stewart he was in, right?
Yeah, and then he'll pop up in like Michael Bay movies every now and
Oh, okay.
again.
Yeah.
But
I was
he's
glad to see him in something again because he's phenomenal, and we're lucky that he speaks English and can be in films here. So.
he should be a bigger movie star here than he is.
He should be.
Because he is such a talented actor, and he always has such interesting ideas. He's the type of person who you can sort of sit there and talk through a scene with, and just be like, well, let's find a different way to do this,
Yeah.
or what can we do that's different or unique, and he'll come up with some really clever ideas.
I feel like he just inhabits his roles really well because I'll never forget him as the husband in A Separation, but it was he melted it into this role so well that after 1 minute I was like, oh yeah, that guy's a physicist. And
yeah, oh yeah, he totally finds the characters on the inside, and I think he's somewhat of a naturally empathetic actor, and he knows how to sort of bring out the humanity in his characters, which is kind of what I'm always looking for in actors when I'm trying to cast them in a role. And in A Separation, he's plays this character who you care a lot about, even though he's kind of not the best character in the world.
yeah. Do you like to explore sort of moral conundrums in your films? Do you think this film sort of, all the characters are having a major. I mean, it's good that they're talking about whether this is actually right or not, that they should do this.
I think I like worlds that are gray. I think I like worlds where there aren't bad guys, or that a bad guy is hard to know. Is just a bad guy thinks he's the hero of his own story, and I think moral conundrums play into that, because when everyone's living in the gray, everything becomes a moral conundrum, and so I like exploring, what's not necessarily right or wrong, but what feels right to our characters, I would say, rather than I don't think I try to take a position on what the morality in this movie of what the most moral thing to do is. I think Jabir and Payman have very good points when they're making their argument, and just as Judy has good points and Eddie has good points. I don't think there's a clear moral answer, and it's about what are you willing to live with.
I thought surely one of them was going to have a crisis of conscience and destroy the machine, and that never happened. And I actually really kind of liked it that they all end up on the same page about what they're doing with this. But it did also kind of remind me of the show Dexter, where we're okay with him being a serial killer because he killed other serial killers.
Right. I mean,
so it's we're okay with getting rid of this person because they do bad things.
But yeah, it's they, are willing, they do bad things. But I think one of the things I'm trying to show with Darby specifically is that he's not necessarily a bad guy. He did one thing that, sent his life into a spiral. There was but they killed him before that moment had happened. So, it's not a clear, this is a good person or a bad person. It's, he's just a person,
Why did you decide to give Eddie the disability?
I wanted him to have thwarted dreams. And it was really important to me that he was a character who didn't see, these are characters, they've built their own little life together. They've sort of created this family unit that's really important. And for, I think, Judy, that's really all right, I'm going to be a nurse because that's the thing that makes me want, there's always a need for nurses. It's always going to be stable. And so she wanted stability. And Eddie, I think, had this dream and this plan, and having it thwarted, I think, plays into his sort of sense of why I want this machine to exist, why I want this world. What is it plays into his anger and sort of selfishness a little bit, and I always sort of figured like his disability was less about the physical disability of it, but sort of the mental, how he mentally dealt with it. I think he's probably pretty depressed in a certain way, and he hasn't really ever wrestled with that.
Right. I mean, I love this. What I love about sci-fi, and I loved about this, is that sci-fi kind of always invites you to put yourself into the place of these people and be like, hey, you have the ability to go into the past and get rid of a person or people. Do you do it?
Will you?
Well, I think the problem is that, the way that you have set this up is they have to live with it. They can't do it and forget it. So they know what they've done. And so it's like, live it, and then Judy Greer, she kills the guy and then goes on the social media, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's an easy answer to whether you would use it. I get asked this a lot in Q&As. That's why I wanted to turn it on you before you turned it on me. And I think, like, I wouldn't use it. Like, I don't have anyone I could kill or want to kill who would change anything. Or, yeah, sure, I guess I could stop some school shootings, which I guess would do it, but it feels like I have a power that it seems like it's not my responsibility to play God that way.
Well, I really liked that, the result of them, was it the third time they used it? Basically, the result was that they ended up with a son instead of a daughter, and they're like,
yeah, it's the second time Judy used it.
And I love that they can't even explain that. Like, they don't even know why it turned out like that. And then at that point, you really know how unpredictable that it all can be.
Yeah, I mean, everything's unpredictable. Like, when Jabir, uses the machine behind their back, there's a whole bunch of random changes that, like, they seem like they shouldn't make any sense. Like, Judy's jacket changes, or her blouse changes, or like their shopping bags change. It's like everything is unpredictable. Their design of their house changes. Did
the hospital change?
Riley changes.
I feel like I saw
there were some
changes.
Yes, there were some little tweaks
here and there that I was like, I think that's different.
Yeah.
Did their house change?
Their house changed. Okay. Yeah, because it's just unpredictable. The things like, who knows? You can kill someone in the past who changed, you saved someone's life who then became really important, an influencer, right? And the next thing you know, some pair of new jeans becomes really popular because that influencer has brought back, I don't know, green bell bottoms with purple polka dots. So suddenly, like, style, like, you just never know. Like,
I think I might go back and murder the person that created biking shorts.
Spandex?
Yes. That's a joke. I definitely would not.
If it happens, we won't remember.
Let's talk about the end. Was the end a debate? Like, did you have a hard time discovering what you wanted to do? It's left a bit open, and I'm not going to make you say, like, who's really in that room when she opens the door? Definitely.
It's Payman. No, I mean, I don't think
Pedro Pascal, and that's why she's smiling.
I think I don't think it matters. I don't know who's on the other side of the door, but I think, when she says, like, our child needs a parent, she's not saying, well, my daughter. She's not saying, and I think that's a very conscious choice. She's trying to line up her memories with her family, because all we are is a collection of memories. And what matters, what is not what's behind that door. It's that smile on her face. Even the things she's saying to Mal at the end, I think, are to help pick him up as much as, they are and maybe it's what she wants, but she's making this choice knowing that whatever happens, like, we'll have our memories alive and we'll be a family, whatever that family is.
What do you think you want people's takeaway to be from the film?
So we had an early test screening of the movie. Might have been even like our first one. And after the note session where everyone like tears you apart and you feel really shitty, I got a text like a half hour later from someone who was there, and he was like, "Oh, thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed the movie, blah blah blah." And then he said, "I got home and I kissed my wife and hugged my daughter, and that's what I want you to take away. I want you to hug your kid, hug your spouse, call the person you take for granted, just value the people you have in your life."
Good one. I'm gonna call my mom when I get home. Actually, I'm gonna text her after. I'm gonna text her right now.
We can wait.
So what is going on with this film next? You just played Fantasia Fest in Montreal.
It's coming to this theater on Friday, so tell your friends. It'll be opening here August 11th. I'll be doing a Q&A on Friday night at the 7:30 screening and a Q&A on the Saturday at 7:15 screening. It's also going to be opening in select theaters nationwide, New York, Boston, Chicago, Austin, Miami, or a couple others I can't remember. But
you're one of the few indie projects that are actually having a real theatrical right now.
I know. I'm really blessed. My distributor, Wellgo, just really has been behind this movie and really loves it. And it's so exciting that we're going to get out in theaters and people can see it on the big screen. Because even though it is an intimate movie that I think people can watch at home, I think it does benefit from a communal viewing and feeling the audience there.
You know what I forgot to ask you? I usually always start with this question, and I wanted to especially ask you because you have a history with Film Independent. I usually always start with the question of what's your origin story of how you became a filmmaker, and why are you still a filmmaker? Just because we have so many members that are aspiring filmmakers.
So I was a sales agent. Well, first I was an assistant to Jonathan Demme's producers. So I worked at Jonathan Demme's production company. And that was a short-lived job. And then I was a sales agent. And that's when I first came to Los Angeles Film Festival. I think it was 2005. And I was representing some films. So a sales agent is when you read about an independent film getting bought by A24 or whatever, a sales agent is the person who negotiates that deal, basically brokers it. And so I was doing that for a number of years, and that gave me a real fantastic understanding of the business side of things. And I parlayed that knowledge into producing, and I produced a number of films, indies, a couple indie docs, a couple small narratives, and then it was in 2011. I was at Sundance. I had a documentary on Roger Corman that I'd produced that was at Sundance, and I had a film called Silver Tongues that won Slam Dance that year. And I think I sort of had this feeling that I wanted to hustle for myself now, and I'd always wanted to tell my own stories. So I left that festival, Park City, 2 festivals, and decided to write Dead Man's Burden, which was my first film. And I'm still a filmmaker. Why? I don't know. Why should I be a filmmaker? It's not very lucrative. I guess I like connecting with audiences. I like connecting with people. I like, making people feel things and think things. And I think film is a fantastic medium for that. So that's why. It's not the money.
Yeah, I think the time that we're in right now is really crazy, and a lot of these questions are coming up for people. Why did I get in it? Do I still want to be in it? Why is it still important? So I think it's interesting to hear people talk about it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are right now wondering, why are, they're not getting paid, and a lot of the issues that the WGA and SAG are fighting for right now are issues that are we're being taken for granted. So there was a line, a lot of writers on the picket lines, we were talking early on, and it was so many people already, it's yeah, sure, I'm picketing. This is not going to financially kill me because I already had a day job while I was doing my writing job because the pay was that bad. So it didn't, it's this sense of hey, we're creating this stuff. Pay us a fair deal.
Well, thank you so much for making this movie, for coming. I can't believe I'm seeing you again 10 years later.
12,
years?
11.
11 years later.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited.
It's awesome.
That
This
you're
is fun.
here.
Returning to Film Independent after all this time. Thank you, everyone, for coming out on this somewhat rainy day. It did rain. At
Rainy,
least-
but still sunshiny all day, strangely.
Welcome to LA.
Thanks
everyone.
everybody.